All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Fam Sports Podcast, the most electrifying and exciting sports podcast on all of YouTube. Here we are in State College. I'm Logan, one half of your host with the other half.
That's you. That's me. Yeah. Devin, I'm here. And pleased to be with us today. If you recall from several podcasts in the past, the Encyclopedia of Sports, Squid, is here. What's going on, Squid?
It is good to be back, man. Thanks for having me on.
Anytime,
no problem.
Anytime.
But first, our first topic today is the NHL, and I just have to address something. This has been on my chest for quite some time. Because I was listening back to a couple of podcasts ago, and you said that the Vegas Knights would be the first ever expansion team knocked out of the first round by the Kings. Well, Vegas got the clean sweep, Squid. That's what happened. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to publicly apologize to the Vegas Knights organization right here on the record.
Las Vegas Golden Knights, I have to apologize. I did not expect you to play that well.
They made you look like a fool. And you know what, Squid? I want you to publicly apologize to me as well for doubting me and my Vegas Knights.
Logan Michael Hilty, he knows his stuff when it comes to hockey, and he knows that his Las Vegas Golden Knights did great in the first round.
Thank you. All right, so now that we have that settled, let's talk about the second round starting. Vegas obviously got that clean sweep in the first round. My Vegas Knights, second round, they're going up against the Sharks. DB, let's start with you. What do you think about this?
Well, after that first game, I think, what is happening? Really, Vegas won convincingly. Like, what was it? 7-0, right? 7-0 against the Sharks, who also had a clean sweep in the first round. I don't know what to expect anymore. I really don't. I had the Sharks honestly beating the Knights in this series, and now it's looking like the Knights could sweep them as well. So I don't know. After their first series and now this game, I think they have a solid chance of making the finals. It's good.
Yeah, and I never would have expected that.
I mean, go ahead.
Sorry. I thought that they looked really good at home. And another interesting thing I saw was how big their home ice advantage was. Man, those Vegas Golden Knights, they can get people to show up for their game, and they get people really pumped up for the games.
Listen, I knew it was going to be a great start when we saw that epic skating performance from those actors. You know, you had the Vegas Knight destroying that stupid king in the center of the ice. That pregame performance, they had these glow-up marching band people. They had the castle in the upper right corner of the stadium. I loved every second of it, and I'm calling it right now. This isn't even a hot take. This is a lukewarm take right here. But I'm calling it it's an easy make to the finals for them.
Oh,
and they're even going to win the finals. They're going to win the damn Stanley Cup.
Wow. All right, well, I mean, I think they have a solid chance. They're really deep, especially if you look on the left side of their forwards. Marcus O'Neill and Perron, they're really deep. And they have a lot of scores on the team, and I think that obviously has worked out for the best. And not too shabby himself is Marc-Andre Fleury, the goalie for the Vegas Knights. Another shutout already in this historic season for Vegas. I don't know, we'll see. But we move on to the next series in the West, the Jets and the Nashville Predators. Of course, we know the Predators made it to the finals last year against the Penguins. Squid, who do you have taking this one? Game 1 is over, by the way. I think they played last night. Last night. The Jets won 4-1, so they take the first game. Who do you have winning this series?
Still have to stick with Nashville, even though the Jets got the win in Game 1, and they might have the best forwards in the NHL what's left of the postseason, arguably to compete with the Penguins or the Capitals. I just think they have the experience, they have better defense and better goaltending. I think the defense and the goaltending and the hard checks from the Nashville forwards, I think eventually they'll power through and win this series, but it will probably go 7.
You don't think Hellebuyck's a good goalie?
He's young, and he's starting to come into his own, but across from him in Nashville, you have one of the best goalies in the game. and I've seen him make save after save, time after time. And his experience and, honestly, his skill will prevail in the series, and they'll probably come out on top.
Yeah. I mean, Hellebuyck and Rene were both Vezina finalists this year. It'd be interesting to see if either of those win the actual trophy and whether or not that corresponds to them winning the series. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yes, it's a lot better than Andre Pavlik.
Well, that's without a doubt. He's now a backup where he belongs. Yeah, I have the Jets actually taking this series in actually 6 games. I have them winning the series.
I have that as well.
I have the Predators taking the next game. They come back shot out of a cannon at home the next game. They take that one. And then I think the Jets, they win 2 at home because that environment over there, like you said with the Vegas Golden Knights, the Jets probably have one of the better environments of the playoff teams left. And it'll be hard for the Predators to win there, I think. And so I think the Jets will take games 3 and 4, and then the Predators come home again, and then the Jets will win at home. That would be my prediction for the series.
I also have the Jets winning in 6 games. I think of what you said about their home environment being probably one of the best home environments in the NHL right now. And watching that series against the Wild, I thought the Jets were extremely impressive. I mean, granted, most of the games were close except for the final game of the series of where they won 5-0. But I just think they have some of the rowdiest fans, and I really think that plays a factor for their home games. And since they squeaked out this first game in the series, I believe that they can win in 6. So
yeah, well, we'll see what happens there. We move to the East. The two, I would say, probably the 2 favorites in the East right now, the Bruins and Lightning, are actually meeting before the conference finals because they're both from the Atlantic Division. Squid, who do you have winning this series and why?
I have Tampa Bay in 7. I think this is going to come down to a battle of blue lines. The Boston, they have a young blue line, solid. They have Torrey Krug, got a rookie in Boston that's been performing very well. In Tampa Bay, though, I think the experience on the blue line and just the overall skill and depth makes a big difference, and they'll come out on top. Boston looked good, but it took them 7 games against the Maple Leafs. Tampa Bay faced the worst team in New Jersey, but they looked dominant, and their scoring was fantastic in that series. Against some good goaltending from New Jersey throughout the year, I don't think that Boston will be able to keep up at a certain point.
Yeah, and you mentioned the D-line for the Lightning. Besides Mikhail Sergachev, who's one of the younger guys, they have 5 veterans on the back line, including Victor Hedman, who, is he a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year? I don't remember. But he's always been up there.
Sure.
So
yeah, he's always around the Norris Trophy picture.
Yeah. So I also agree that the Tampa Bay Lightning will come out. I think it will take 7 games, especially after losing Game 1 to the Bruins. And it was not even close. It was 6-2. So we'll see what happens there. And lastly, the series that, of course, we're all invested in with the Penguins.
Excuse me, I didn't get to have my input.
Go ahead.
This.
Go ahead.
I actually believe that Tampa Bay
Well,
will
I mean,
take this series.
I didn't really think we needed to hear yours, but go ahead.
Oh, well, considering I'm the only one who actually knows of what's going to happen here, as we saw with Vegas, but
All right.
Here we go. So, Tampa Bay, very impressive against the Devils, 18 goals in 5 games. Granted, the Devils did not really perform all that well. Boston has 28 goals in 7 games against the Maple Leafs, but I really thought they were going to struggle. I really thought the Maple Leafs were going to win that first series. So I actually have Tampa Bay winning here in 7 games yet again. I believe they just came out cold in that first game, but I do believe that they have better talent overall. So I think Tampa Bay will take that series in 7.
All right, and we'll start with you again for the next series, the Penguins and Capitals. Who do you think is going to win that one? We saw the Penguins come back, 2 goals down. They won 3-2.
I think the Penguins have finally reached their playoff stride that we've seen in the past 2 years, especially with them winning the Stanley Cup. So I think the Pens are going to win this in 6 games. The Capitals have really struggled to overcome the second round of the playoffs, as we all know. So it would be huge for the Penguins to win in 6 games. And it seems Squid is very excited to talk about this topic. Let's hear it, Squid.
Yeah.
You're literally chomping at the bit over there. Or should I say barking, yeah.
You watch the Penguins game, and you watch the Capitals go up 2-0. Another Ovechkin goal. And in your Washington, you're thinking, this is it. It's different this time. And here come the Penguins. They come storming back, score their first goal. Great redirect by Hornquist. Second goal, look who's at fault. Yet again, Alexander Ovechkin, proving that he's way worse than Sidney Crosby. Messes up on defense. The puck goes to his nemesis, Sidney Crosby, who easily slots it in the back of the net. And the tide is completely turned in the game. Tide is completely turned in the series. Since the Penguins came back to win Game 1, away in Washington, they now have home ice, and the Capitals must come back and win. I don't see them doing it. I think they're just a bunch of head cases over there. I don't think they're going to win against the Pens. Not with the way Ovechkin's been playing defense.
You know, I think you made one huge mistake there, and you said that Ovechkin is worse than Crosby.
Okay, come on.
Are you kidding me, Squid? Ovechkin is a generational player. First ballot Hall of Famer, without a doubt. And you're telling me Sidney Crosby has more talent than him? Sidney Crosby's the luckiest NHL player I've ever witnessed.
Really?
His goals are out of pure luck.
Pure luck. He bats it out of the air. That's pure luck?
Yeah. But, I'm sorry. Go ahead, DB. Let's hear about your Penguins, huh?
Alright, yeah, the Penguins, I'm calling it, they're winning in 5 or 6 games this series. As per usual, the Capitals will fall. The Penguins will rise. They'll move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. Not saying they'll make it to the Stanley Cup Final, but the Washington Capitals sure as heck won't. I think the Penguins win in 5 or 6. Sidney Crosby, by the way, is much better than Alexander Ovechkin. Just look at the points per game in the playoffs. Alexander Ovechkin doesn't even have 1 point per game.
Different topic for a different day, bud. But
right,
we'll see. All right, so here is our final conversation for the NHL world today. The Hart Trophy finalists have been announced. Who, in your mind, takes it, Squid?
Taylor Hall. No doubt for me. Carried a New Jersey team that was deprived of scoring. That was the reason they had the number 1 pick in this year's draft. And Taylor Hall just steps up his game, really carries the team, and they make the playoffs after having the number 1 pick. Just incredible to me what he's been able to accomplish. And you watch as New Jersey heated up, it followed in line with Taylor Hall heating up. You have great contributions like Nathan MacKinnon in Colorado, who did it in less games. But I don't think Taylor Hall... I think Taylor Hall, honestly, was much better than Nathan MacKinnon. And he had less around him. So definitely has to go to Taylor Hall.
While I agree with most of what you just said, I would give it to Nathan MacKinnon. I would say he was the more valuable player to his team. Not that both players weren't the most valuable players to their respective teams, but just as competition between each other. I think Nathan MacKinnon, after Matt Duchene finally left that organization, he had his time to shine. He was the number 1 center, and he really stepped up to the plate, got the Avalanche back into the playoffs after, I think they were the worst team in the NHL last year, and he was able to make it into the playoffs with his team, and he was injured for a little bit of it, but he still managed to get in. But I think it could go, honestly, to either of those two. I don't think Anze Kopitar will get it out of the 3 of them. I don't know if they just couldn't find anyone else to put in there, but I don't think Anze Kopitar should get that award. I think it's either Hall or MacKinnon.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of go with Squid here and go with Taylor Hall. I just think he's on a whole new level this season, and like Squid said, he carried his team to the playoffs and even squeaked out a game against the Lightning as well. So I'm gonna have to go with Taylor Hall.
Both very respectable, though.
Yes.
Both players have a very good chance of it.
All right, so thank you for listening to this portion of the Fam Sports Podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking all about the NFL draft. Some huge stuff has happened over the past couple of days. We'll get to all of it. Thank you for listening, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome everyone back to the most electrifying and exciting sports podcast on all of YouTube, the Fam Sports Podcast. I'm Logan, here Devin.
Hello.
We're back with the Sports Encyclopedia. Squid.
Yeah,
That's right.
him.
That's right.
him.
All right,
That's
so
him.
now we're talking about the NFL Draft, one of my favorite times of the year. What teams will take what college stars, what busts will happen, and now the first round is over, the second round is over, the third round is over, the whole draft is over. So let's break it down, DB.
We're here. You know what? Let's just start with the number 1 overall pick. Wow.
Baker Mayfield.
Stunned me. I mean, the reports came out, so I wasn't surprised they took him. I was surprised. Well, I don't know how to phrase it. I saw that it might be coming. I'm still surprised they took him number 1 overall. You know what? Let's just go to Squid. Squid, how do you feel about the Browns taking Baker Mayfield number 1?
If you're an organization like the Browns, you've swung and missed on so many quarterbacks, you need to take the guy that's the safe bet. Or if you're going to take a quarterback to develop, you take the quarterback with the most upside. Baker Mayfield is neither. Baker Mayfield has the potential to be a very good quarterback, but he's very immature. He's a jerk. And if you're the Browns, you don't want a character issue on that team. If you want the most NFL ready quarterback, you take Josh Rosen. He might not have the best upside, but he's very good. And if you want the most upside, you take Josh Allen. They went a route of neither. They took a quarterback with character issues that can be good, but not as good as Josh Allen. So I was really surprised at the pick.
I think for me, what most surprised me was that they didn't take Sam Darnold, honestly. I thought they'd take Sam Darnold. He's one of the younger guys, and he has the size and the athletic ability.
Yeah.
Something that I don't think Baker Mayfield really has. He's undersized, and he's not the greatest athlete.
No.
And I while he is accurate, I don't know that he's a better pick than Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen even. I don't know. I would have taken Sam Darnold if I was the Browns.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that the Browns learned from their mistakes, as their head coach today said that Tyrod Taylor is still going to be their starting quarterback. So I'm glad they aren't rushing him into the whole process and then just ruining his career, but I don't know how you can pick Baker Mayfield number 1 overall when he literally screams out of failures like Johnny Manziel to me. Obviously with the character issues, and I really don't think he is that spectacular athlete that even Johnny Manziel had. And I don't know. I just don't know what they were thinking. To me, I believe that Darnold was probably the best QB prospect out of all of them, despite I don't really like him that much. But I do think he was the best prospect, so I was shocked that they didn't pick Darnold, but it also didn't surprise me because of what Cleveland has the history of doing. So,
I mean, well, we mentioned Darnold. He ends up with the New York Jets, number 3. Squid, how do you think that'll fit in with the Jets? How do you think he'll do?
I really like Darnold, and I think he could be the most talented quarterback. And the Jets traded up, and I think they were overjoyed to end up with Darnold. They're going to say, oh, we might get the second best quarterback, but they got the quarterback at the top of everyone's board going in.
yeah.
He's really talented. He's been in a place that's a big city. He played at USC, which is right in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So he can handle the big city lights of New York and all the criticism that's going to come with the job. He also has a mentor in Josh McCown that can prepare him for the position so he doesn't have to play right away. And he can develop. He won't have to do too much because the New York Jets would do well to put weapons around him. Because when there aren't weapons around him, he tries to do too much, and he throws too many interceptions.
Yeah.
But in a big scheme with New York, if they can get weapons around him, I think he can be dangerous.
I feel with him that you can kind of teach the whole thing of securing the ball with all of the fumbles in the pocket, and maybe even to some extent the interceptions that he had as well. But I don't think you can teach some of the core athleticism that he possesses. So, I think that was a solid pick, and I think they were absolutely...
they were ecstatic.
Yeah, they were amazed that they got him. So, that was huge for them.
And then Josh Allen goes number 7. The Bills trade up to pick Josh Allen. Over top of Josh Rosen. Squid, I know you're relatively high on Josh Rosen. How do you think Josh Allen will fit in Buffalo?
I like both of them. I think Rosen is the most complete right now, and I think Allen has the most upside. And while he has so much upside, he's a really risky prospect to draft. The Bills have really struggled to find a franchise quarterback, and taking a risk on a quarterback like Allen puts a lot of stress on the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator because he's so raw playing in Wyoming, Logan, your favorite state.
Yes.
It's going to take a lot to get the most out of him, but getting the most out of him gives you a consistent Pro Bowler. He has the arm strength of a young Jay Cutler, and he won't be afraid to sling it around. So I think if he pans out, he can be a great pick for the Bills at number 7.
Yeah, I think Josh Allen fits the Buffalo environment the best out of the quarterbacks because of his arm, and you have to throw through the wind and the elements up there. Only problem with the Bills is they don't have a starter ahead of him, I don't think.
I believe it's A.J. McCarron
A.J. McCarron.
Right?
Yes.
And I think Josh Allen, like you said, he has the most potential, which means you have to give him a couple years. And the Bills, I don't think they have any, even if it's McCarron.
Yeah, I believe so. I'll check on that.
I mean, McCarron could start. I think the Bills want Allen to start, and I don't know if that'll pan out for them. But like you said, they've struggled to find a quarterback. Obviously, Tyrod Taylor, they traded him to the Browns, and ended up with Allen, which I think is a solid pick. I do think Allen's a great quarterback, and he will be a successful NFL quarterback. You just have to give him a little bit of time, I think. That's the biggest thing with him.
Yeah, so we do know that, which, by the way, McCarron is the starter right now, but I think the biggest criticisms of Allen going into were his accuracy and the strength of the opponents that he faced at Wyoming, which is the greatest state, by the way, Squid. So I think with those going into question, you do have to make him a backup so he can get that learning experience, because here at the NFL, it's a whole new level of competition, and also I think it takes some time to get adjusted to the weather conditions in Buffalo and to kind of just get under control of how to throw outside of the hashes in those small little spots compared to some huge chances he had when he was playing at college. So I do think he has an extreme amount of upside. I'm just a little bit worried that he could be a bust if Buffalo does not handle him in the right way. If that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair, accurate estimation for him. And then Josh Rosen, the last of the quarterbacks in the top 10, which, by the way, 4 of the top 10 picks were quarterbacks. That very historic. I forget how many years it's been, but it's been a while. Josh Rosen goes to Arizona. I like it. I like the move, especially because he is the most refined quarterback, I think, out of them. And with a receiver like Larry Fitzgerald on the team, if you can find Larry Fitz on the field, you're given a pretty good shot of him catching the ball.
Yeah. Squid, how about you? How do you feel about Josh Rosen?
I really like Josh Rosen. He's very loud. He's going to say some really stupid things, and he's going to tick a lot of people off.
Yeah,
he did it right after the draft.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. I think he already did that, commenting of how all of the teams before him made the biggest mistake of their lives, not drafting him. So, but go on. I'm sorry.
It was a mistake from him to say that, because he should be grateful that he went to an organization like Arizona. A good organization with good coaches. They need a lot right now. And he's going to come in, he's ready to compete right away, which is what they need, because Sam Bradford is made of glass, and the first person that hits him will cause an injury. So by week 2 or 3, Josh Rosen could be in and starting, and I think he's the most ready. Now, Josh Rosen's not very mobile, so you have to build a line around him. If you can have a line around Josh Rosen and protect him, he can be a lethal quarterback for Arizona.
Yeah.
And they're going to need him right away. So I think it was a good pick for Arizona.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with all of that for Rosen. I think right now, you probably if you put him in the starting position compared to all the other QBs, I think he would perform the best right away.
I agree.
So, all right. Up next was who, DB? Tell us.
Last of the first round quarterbacks, I believe there was no one else, right?
No.
32.
Lamar Jackson. Yep, there he is.
Yep.
Goes to the
Front man in the
Ravens.
first round.
He was sitting in the green room. Finally got his name called. Didn't look too happy about it. That he fell that far.
Yeah, I think he was shocked he didn't get picked by the Patriots, honestly.
Yeah. I thought the Patriots would take him as well, but they decided to go with Sony Michel, a running back from Georgia. Which I guess the loss of Deion Lewis, Tom Brady will still be there for another year. You got to get a running back, I guess.
They have Rex Burkhead, man.
Rex Burkhead is a Joe Schmo. He won't do anything.
And James White, probably the best Super Bowl performer of all time.
Really think the backs at New England right now just swiped carries from Deion Lewis and got the touchdowns. Deion Lewis was the talented back out of the three.
Yeah, that was a blessing, not even in disguise for Deion Lewis to leave that
got out
hellhole
of
of an organization.
Yes.
They're about to fall off a cliff, I think. Especially if Tom and Gronk leave. Their offense is in shambles.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But Lamar Jackson to the Ravens. I wasn't particularly high on Lamar Jackson. I do like him as a quarterback. He's still 6'2" or 6'3". If he runs like he did in college, it won't end well for him. We saw that with RG3, who, by the way, is also on the Ravens, so interesting. They have 3 quarterbacks now. But I was shocked he fell past the Patriots, but the Ravens traded up and got him, and we'll see what happens. Squid, what do you think about Lamar Jackson?
As a passer, I think he's a little bit raw. He has the talent to be really good, but he runs around a lot, and he has the look of RG3. Even though in an offense like Louisville, he was able to look at multiple routes and look at the development of the routes and make reads from there, unlike RG3, who would throw to the first read, who was usually open in Baylor. I worry that he's going to get hurt. He's very slim, and he's going to run around a lot for a quarterback, which you always worry about quarterbacks that run, is injuries. Unless he puts a little bit more meat on those bones, he might get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, Squid, I actually kind of have to go with you on this one as well, because I believe that Lamar Jackson, if he runs around like how he did in college, especially in the AFC North, probably the hardest hitting division in the National Football League, he will get absolutely destroyed. That being said, I also think it was very bold of what he said after he got drafted that he guarantees a Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very bold, but I do think he has some upside. I think with the right coaching and the right development, I do think he could be a successful quarterback, but he just has to have the smarts to not run willy-nilly and pretty much end his career single-handedly.
Yeah. He's just got to be careful, I think. That's the biggest thing for him. Which Joe Flacco will probably end up starting. You may see him in a couple schemes here and then, maybe in the preseason, but I don't think he'll be the main starter. Joe Flacco will probably still absorb that role. But, I mean, if he gets a couple years' experience, some coaching under his belt, watches Joe Flacco, possibly RG3 play, I think he can learn. He can be a good quarterback for the Ravens. All right, so that'll end our...
If Joe Flacco can win a Super Bowl, I think anyone can.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that Super Bowl happened. It was a mistake in the league somewhere that the Ravens and 49ers ended up. It was Colin Kaepernick versus Joe Flacco. 2
of the greatest quarterbacks of our generation.
Yeah, okay. I've seen better quarterbacks in high school than those 2, so... I don't know how they made it, but that's beyond the point. That'll end our discussion about the quarterbacks in the first round. When we come back, we'll be discussing some more picks in the draft and how those teams that got those picks look for the next year.
Yeah.
All right, hello everyone. We are back. Fam Sports Podcast, back at you again. Logan and Devin here, live from State College. We're also here with the Encyclopedia of Sports, Squid. He's back. How are you, Squid?
Thank you for having me. I am doing fantastic.
All right,
that is great to hear.
Let's keep the conversation
fantastic.
going.
Fantastic is a fantastic word.
Oh yeah.
Just think about fantastic for 2 seconds. I'm going to give a quick pause here to think about the word fantastic. All right, well done. Great thinking. All right.
So here we go. Let's keep the conversation going with the NFL draft. Let's go through the rest of the top 10 picks, besides the ones we already addressed. And let's see how they fit in with those respective teams.
All right.
So,
start with the Giants, number 2 overall, our boy Saquon Barkley.
Daddy Saquon, as I like to call him.
Number 26, already on the Giants. Jerseys are selling like crazy.
He became a father and an NFL star in the same exact week. I can't even say I'm shocked. But
Squid, how do you feel about Barkley to the Giants, number 2?
Honestly, it's my second favorite pick of the draft, behind Derwin James falling to the Chargers. The last time the New York Giants had a dominant running back or even a good running back, was Ahmad Bradshaw, and they won a Super Bowl with that running back. Go back even farther, they had Brandon Jacobs. They won another Super Bowl with that running back. The element that's been missing in New York's game has been a running back. And now with their running back, that offense is complete. If Eli Manning can stay healthy and hit a hopefully competitive Odell Beckham Jr., who hopefully doesn't get suspended, then the New York Giants will be looking like a very strong offense.
And folks, this is coming from a Pitt fan.
Yeah.
So you know Saquon Barkley's good if you hear a Pitt fan raving about him as the second best pick in the draft.
Yeah, pure athletically speaking, for that position, he's the best player in the draft. And for the New York Giants to get him at number 2, Eli Manning, I don't think he's in the top tier of quarterbacks anymore, but he's still an elite quarterback that can get it done, especially with a receiver like Odell Beckham Jr., who's proven that he's a decent, not decent, he's a good receiver. And I think Saquon Barkley is a very good dual threat that the Giants needed. He's a runner and he can come out of the backfield to catch passes, which is something that, like you said, they haven't had in a while.
And it's also how the modern NFL is shaping up as well.
Yeah, you look at Le'Veon Bell on the Steelers. He can pound it, and then he can also come out of the backfield and make catches. So I think that's a great pick for the Giants. And I think it'll fare well for them.
All right, coming up next, we have Denzel Ward, picked number 4 overall by the Cleveland Browns. Squid, what are your thoughts about him?
Again, the Cleveland Browns mess up on an easy pick. You have a chance to put Bradley Chubb, who is the most talented defensive end in this class, opposite of Myles Garrett, and immediately have the best pass rush in the NFL. Instead, Cleveland decides to take a cornerback that could have gone at the back end of the top 10. While he's a good cornerback and the best corner in the draft, you have a more talented player that you left open. And if you're talking about more talent, Quentin Nelson, who went after Denzel Ward, also more talented. The Browns have holes in a lot of different places across the football field, and they need to fill by best available. Not by, we like this cornerback, and we'll need him because our defense is bad and we put a lot of pressure on our corners. I think take the best player available and build your strength on the D-line.
I think that also the big thing there is, look at who you're playing against. You have pocket passers in the AFC North. You have Big Ben, Joe Flacco, and Andy Dalton. Not particularly athletic quarterbacks. And if you can get a pass rush on those guys, you're going to fare better than the Cleveland Browns have the past 2 years, 1-31.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think they should have taken Bradley Chubb. And I think Denver, wow.
Yes.
Their pass rush is going to be incredible. Von Miller and
on
Bradley Chubb opposite of each other. I think that'll be incredible.
Yeah, that is going to be absolutely insane for Denver, and it's really going to be what they need for that defense, I think, because I think arguably the best part of a defense is the pass rush, because that could disrupt the entire offense overall. And also, Bradley Chubb is so athletic and so gifted that he can also help in the run defense as well as a DN. So I think that's an absolutely huge pick for them.
I think, honestly, those two picks should have been flipped in my eyes.
Yeah.
I think the Browns should have taken Chubb, and maybe the Broncos do take Denzel Ward.
Yeah,
they lost Aqib Talib this offseason. So if they got Denzel Ward, that would have worked out. But I think Bradley Chubb taken at number 5, that's a great pick for the Broncos. And I think he'll work out very well there.
All right, up next, the Colts took Quentin Nelson. I actually kind of want to address this later, just because he's kind of featured in my best draft. Okay.
Yeah.
So, let's just talk about him in a little bit.
All right. So, Josh Allen, we already talked about. The Chicago Bears go out and get Roquan Smith, the linebacker. Squid, how do you feel about that?
Wow, I watched him play at the Rose Bowl, and he looked fantastic.
I love this
The
pick.
linebacker class for this class is weak, and he is supremely talented. The Chicago Bears badly needed this, and this is a home run for me.
Yes, I am 110% with you on this one, Squid. I love Roquan Smith. I love the moves that the Bears are making. They're also in one of my teams that had the best draft, so I will address that a little bit later. But Roquan Smith, I love this pick.
Yeah, he's just a dominant beast.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about Chicago Bears defense, you think of dominant beasts.
Yes.
And they're shaping up to be a decent force next year in the NFC North. We'll see how they fare, but Roquan Smith, huge addition from Georgia. He's played excellent, and I think he'll continue that in Chicago. Number 9, the 49ers got Mike McGlinchey. They do have holes, the 49ers do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Squid, how do you feel about that?
You just got your quarterback, and you paid him a lot of money, and now you got to protect him. They had extra tackles, and they shipped them out for more picks, which I think they're going to use to improve their team. This guy is a very talented tackle, probably the best tackle in the draft, and he'll do a good job to keep their new quarterback, Jimmy G, safe in the pocket and throwing dimes down the field to all his new receivers. So I'm excited for this. It'll help their offense a lot.
Yeah, I think he'll fit in.
Yeah.
With the Niners. Like you said, you get a quarterback, you got to protect that quarterback. And Mike McGlinchey, one of the better tackles in the draft, takes that. And, Squid, you were surprised. I know this is outside of the top 10, but number 11, Minkah Fitzpatrick, fell. You said you might be a little bit surprised that happened. Why so?
Well, he's so good. He could go in at safety. He could play corner. He's really a good matchup player, and in today's NFL, that's really important. He can cover taller receivers. He could cover in the slot. Really, he's so useful across any position in the NFL, and in today's passing offense, the secondary is becoming more and more important. So getting a player that's that talented this late in the draft is a shock for me, and Miami definitely needs it with their secondary. And going up against Tom Brady, you need people that can cover, and this will help them a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. All right, well, let's move on to what teams had the best draft. Squid, I wanted to start with you with this one. I want to know what you think about which teams had the best draft.
I'm going to start with Frank Sinatra's favorite town, New York, with the New York Giants. Wow, they got Saquon Barkley. They added one of the top guards in the draft, and that was all very early. And on top of this, when you add their draft in with the free agent class, getting Nate Soldier as left tackle, you have a great line now, which was a weakness for them in the past, a great run game, and that's to go with a strong passing game built on two strong receivers and now a strong tight end. I think their offense is complete now. You look at the defense last year, it struggled. 2 years ago, they had one of the best defenses in the NFL. They have the talent now to be a Super Bowl contender, and going from a team that got the number 2 pick to the Super Bowl contender means you definitely hit a home run on the draft.
Yes, I would totally go with you on that one. I think the Giants had a great draft. But for me, I have two teams. I couldn't really decide of which one I liked more. The Colts were definitely one for me. And I know that's kind of surprising because they didn't really have any players that'll really stick out to you that you really know their names. But for me, I think they really filled their needs extremely well. You had Quentin Nelson in the first round, who is a guard for Notre Dame. I think he's probably the best O-lineman in the entire draft, and that's huge for protecting Andrew Luck, who has been banged up pretty much his entire career, I'd say.
But he banged up, but the potential to be a game changer in the NFL.
Yes, exactly.
One of the elite quarterbacks, and if you can protect him, that really bodes well.
And going off of that, they also had 4 second-round picks. So they also got Braden Smith, a guard from Auburn, and they also worked on their defense, which is also a weak point for them as well. So they got a linebacker, defensive end, and a defensive lineman. So those all really helped them out. They also filled some of their offensive needs as well. Since they lost Frank Gore, I don't think Marlon Mack can be a starting running back for them. So they got 2 running backs to kind of, I guess, test out of which of those 3 they kind of like the best. They also got some receivers as well. I think Deion Kane from Clemson is a huge steal. I think he's extremely impressive, so I think that's a big move for them. And I kind of want to move on to the Bears as well, because I really was impressed by their draft as well. I really like the Bears going into next season. They got Roquan Smith, which I said I love that pick, absolutely. James Daniels, the center from Iowa, to protect Mitchell Trubisky. They obviously invested a lot into him from the last draft, so I think that's huge. And they also are working on this receiving core. They already have Allen Robinson. They just picked up Anthony Miller from Memphis, the wide receiver. I think he was maybe top 3, top 5 receivers in the draft, which was kind of a weak draft class considering the receivers, but I think it was a huge draft for the Bears and the Colts.
I agree, and this may be purely based on the first-round pick, but I have the Los Angeles Chargers having one of the better drafts. Swid, you mentioned him before, Derwin James. He's just an athletic freak from Florida State. Dropped all the way to number 17, and the Chargers...
I was shocked by that.
They just gobbled him up like it was nothing, like they've never seen him before, because they were surprised as well as I was that he fell that far. And especially from a team that needs some help on defense. They grab him, they grab Nwosu, the linebacker from USC, and they grab another linebacker in Kaiser White from West Virginia. They get a couple of linebackers to help fill in. Their run defense was pathetic last year.
Yeah.
And
really,
Justin Jones, the defensive tackle, I think could help out with that as well.
The only thing I wanted to see from the Chargers was maybe get a QB, because Phillip Rivers is getting to the back end of his career, but there's always next year for that as well, considering most of the QBs were gone after the first round that were probably the top prospects, so it just wasn't worth it in their eyes, I believe.
Yeah, but I think they did a good job addressing the defensive help that they needed.
Yes.
As best they could with that draft.
Yeah.
And
don't overlook Justin Jackson, too. Taken in the 7th round. Guy just performed excellent in college. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great value add in the 7th round.
Yep. And, I mean, with Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, you're just adding more depth there, more weapons for the Chargers to use out of the backfield. Which, like you mentioned, Phillip Rivers is on the back end of his career, so that could really help him out as well. A couple more weapons from the backfield.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so the worst teams in this draft, one stands out to me was the New England Patriots. I don't know what's happening there, but they traded back several times. They traded back in the draft. And I just don't really think they filled their needs the way they needed to. And when they passed on Lamar Jackson, I was really surprised. Tom Brady, obviously the oldest quarterback, can't stay there much longer, and he probably won't with all the tension that's been going on. So I think I was surprised they passed on that. But again, maybe next year. I don't know. I just thought they had probably one of the worst drafts, just based on trading back so many times. Squid?
If you're asking me, I would definitely say Oakland. Their first-round pick, they took a tackle, and while their linemen are aging, they don't need that yet. And they showed earlier that you can sign an offensive lineman. Donald Penn was a free agency player, and they can perform well. Your defense was awful. John Gruden, what are you thinking? I mean, come on. You get players, you eventually fill your needs, but are they talented players? No. You're getting them too late in the draft for them to be that talented. And you get a player like Arden Key in the 3rd round. Well, you're Oakland. You have character issues. You always lead the league in penalties. This guy's a character issue. When are you going to fill their locker room with players that are good characters? You know, you need someone around your team that's going to be a leader. And they didn't get any leaders in this draft class, and they didn't fill any needs on the defense, which is where they needed to fill. Look for them to get shredded again this year, because old Chucky decided to pick an offensive tackle in the 1st round when there were players that could have helped.
Yeah, not only that, he also picked a tackle in the 3rd round from North Carolina and Brandon Parker. So he had 2 tackles in the first 3 rounds, and his second-round pick was actually a defensive tackle, P.J. Hall, from Sam Houston State.
Yeah, that pick, though, there were better players available.
Yeah.
If you're going to get a guy that's a defensive tackle, get a guy that's not from Sam Houston State.
Well, I mean, later in the draft, he also got Maurice Hurst, so...
He did, and that was a good value add later on.
Yes,
but I think there were better defensive tackles available in the second round when he's going to make that pick.
Yeah, I mean...
And if you think Hurst will fall, get a more talented player in the second round, like a corner or a safety.
Yeah, there was a huge concern with Hurst. That's the reason why he fell so far in the first place, because I believe he has like a
heart condition or something.
like a weird like heartbeat or something like that, like quickened heartbeat. So obviously there's a lot of risk with him, and a lot of teams weren't willing to take that risk. And I don't know what John Gruden is doing over there. I know he's very high on Derek Carr, so he really wanted to add some protection for him, but I think he really cost the other parts of his team by doing that in this draft.
I agree.
I couldn't really pick out another team that was worse. Like, the 2 I had in mind were the ones you guys mentioned, so I can really only add on to those points. So, yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe the Bucks, but looking back on it, they really filled the needs that they needed, defensive-wise and running back. I think they got a huge steal with Jones from USC, so...
Yeah, I mean... It's a draft, too. You never know who's going to work out. So,
yeah.
You can't really judge if they had the worst draft yet until a couple years into their careers where you find out if they were big or bust, so to speak. So,
all right, so we will be right back for our final segment today on the Fam Sports Podcast. We will be talking about the hometown team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and their picks and their trade as well throughout the draft, so stay with us.
Yeah.
All right, we are back on the Fam Sports Podcast. I'm Logan, here with Devin.
Hello.
We are here in State College. Squid, however, is not. He's back home in his comfy little bed. The Encyclopedia of Sports. Squid, what's up, my man?
Hey, it is nice to be back home. My comfy little bed is so comfy.
You know, an encyclopedia can be anywhere, okay? And Squid can be anywhere he wants to be. As long as he's here with you, you're getting some very valuable knowledge
also,
from
Squid,
the encyclopedia.
Squid, I'm not sure if you know this, but all of the fans watching, especially the ladies, they love you. You're their favorite guest host here.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So that's absolutely huge. Now let's talk about everyone's favorite team here on the Fam Sports Podcast. If it's not your favorite team, there's something wrong with you. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh yeah, black and gold.
Yes.
Let's go.
Let's break down their first pick in the first round. Squid, how do you feel about this?
It's interesting. I think it was slightly a desperation move. They made a desperation move with Artie Burns in the past, and I think it's going to work out. And with Terrell Edmonds, they were looking at linebackers like Rashawn Evans or Leighton Vander Esch, and they were taken before them. And they still wanted a linebacker. So they get a guy like Edmonds, whose brother is one of the best linebackers in the draft, but who's played as a safety. And if you take him as a safety, there's more talented safeties around him. But if you're planning on playing the dime or the nickel or more coverage, then I think he could play a coverage linebacker. So it gives you the versatility that you're going to want. But if you're drafting him primarily to play safety, then I think there are better safeties available at that pick.
Yeah, I think the direction the Steelers want to go with him is more so, like you said, he can also play the role of a linebacker. Because obviously Ryan Shazier gone, the Steelers just absolutely performed poorly at the linebacker position against the Jaguars. That's my main reason why they lost, putting up over 40 points.
Yeah, against Blake Bortles.
Yeah, and so I think, like you said, the linebackers they were eyeing up got taken earlier. And I think Terrell Edmonds has the size and the athletic ability to cover some ground that perhaps they want in a linebacker to fill that Ryan Shazier role, which we know he was one of the faster linebackers in the league. So I think it's a solid pick, though, for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just have to see how it plays out with him. I think he definitely has some talent and some upside. I do think it was a questionable pick for the first round, but I do think that they have something in mind for him that they would pick him in the first round as well. So I'm not too worried about this one. Now let's move on to the second round. They picked James Washington, a wide receiver from Oklahoma State. We know that the Steelers obviously are very good at picking out wide receivers. Juju Smith-Schuster last year turned out extremely well. Antonio Brown, maybe one of the best in the business. And, so we know that they have this history. How do you feel about James Washington, Squid?
I love him. I was at one of the games, and the Panthers, Pittsburgh Panthers, they planned against James Washington. He's that kind of player. Mm-hmm. You have to make a game plan going in because he has big playability, and you know that even though he's short and his speed doesn't show up at the combine, that when you get onto the field, he has game-time speed. He has big-time playability. He played with the quarterback that they drafted later.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You mentioned his size and speed. Who does that remind you of on the Steelers already? Antonio Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the Steelers can really turn him into a weapon. And if you have Brown, Juju, and James Washington on the team, that could really work. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, he has big playability, and it showed in college. He won the Biletnikoff Award. Just really talented wide receiver that had a really successful college career. And the Steelers have a knack for drafting guys like this. So I think he'll do well to fill the hole of Martavis Bryant.
Yeah. Since you just mentioned Byron, let's talk about the trade that they made. They traded Martavis Byron. Damn it, I can't say his name.
Brian.
Yeah, Brian. For a third-round pick. How do you feel about this, DB?
I think, it was kind of a surprise to people that they traded Martavis Bryant. To me, not so much. I think we heard of problems before with Martavis Bryant and the coaching staff. He sat out a couple games, and he wanted out of the system, and then he kind of came back and he kind of faded away. But I think overall the issue is still there, and especially drafting James Washington, they knew they were going to get a receiver, so they decided to go ahead, ship out Martavis Bryant. They get James Washington, and I think he's a solid replacement for Martavis Bryant.
Yeah. I was a little bit worried, but then I saw who they got with their third-round pick, and I absolutely was amazed. Mason Rudolph, the QB from Oklahoma State, so he already has that connection with James Washington. He was honestly probably one of my favorite QBs in this draft. I think he'll follow up Big Ben for sure. I think this puts in question of where Landry Jones and Josh Dobbs will fall. But I really like this pick, and I really think that with the training of Big Ben, Mason Rudolph could definitely lead the Steelers for the future of the organization.
I think Mason was quoted for saying that it's not Big Ben's job to teach him, which it isn't. But still, even if you're under a quarterback of that stature, under his tutelage for a couple years, 1 or 2 years, or maybe even 3, you just pick up on things, and I think that could really help him out. Squid, how do you think Mason Rudolph fits, and do you like the Steelers' move of getting him?
I love this move. This was my favorite move of the draft. In the first round, I thought the Steelers could have picked a quarterback or a running back, and that would have been Geis or Rudolph for me. Rudolph has the look of Big Ben. You watch him throw the deep ball, and you think this guy would fit perfectly in the Steelers system. And I really think he will. With big play receivers around him, like Smith-Schuster, Brown, and now James Washington, he'll be able to get the ball to him downfield. And while he played in a Big 12 air raid offense and might need some time to be refined on his pocket game, if you see him in the pocket, he makes clean passes to everyone. And I'm shocked he was available in the third round. I think he might be a first-round talent. And with some time grooming under Big Ben, I think he'll be excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if they did it intentionally, but they moved up, picked him directly before the Cincinnati Bengals had back-to-back picks. Perhaps some spite involved. Maybe they wanted to prevent the Bengals from getting him. Who knows? Maybe the Bengals would have picked him after the Steelers. Because I think that was the pick the Steelers traded for.
Yeah.
So I think if the Bengals probably would have taken him as a successor to Andy Dalton in the next 2 picks if the Steelers wouldn't have taken him. So I agree. I thought it was a great move on the Steelers' part. Mm-hmm. He's still young. Give him a couple years under Big Ben, and I think he could be a solid quarterback.
All right, so in the 4th round, we saw that the Steelers picked, let's just say the offensive tackle from...
Chooks.
Yeah, Chooks. Chooks, okay. That's what I'll call him. The
Chooks,
offensive tackle from Western Michigan. He moved here from Nigeria. Very inspiring story following him. And at first I was kind of scratching my head trying to figure out what the Steelers were doing with this pick. But then, DB, I think you found the solution to this.
Yeah, I read that Hubbard, who was the swing tackle for them, he would come in every once in a while and even subbed in at some point. I think it was Foster was out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he came in and subbed in, and he took over pretty well. And I think they wanted a guy just like that to replace Chris Hubbard. And Chooks, I think, can do that. He'll come in and be just a swing lineman, a swing tackle that they needed, and he can possibly, in a couple years, take over for one of the 2 tackles on the Steelers who are very talented. But I think I agree. At first, I did not understand why they picked him, but now that I put it in more perspective, I think I get why they chose him there, and I think it could work out. Squid?
Yeah, there were other needs there at the board at the 4th round, and I don't think tackle was the biggest need. But when you look at the talent, and you look how raw he is, he's going to have time to develop. And you get a guy that, if he was more developed with the physical tools that he had, would probably be a late 1st round, early 2nd round pick. You have this guy fall to you in the 4th round because he's not polished yet. He's one of the best O-line coaches in Mike Munchak in the game. So I really think he'll be able to develop into a really strong starting right tackle, just a mauler at right tackle that'll help you run in the run game. So yeah. I think it'll work out to be a good pick.
Yeah, you mentioned Munchak, and he was the one who took Chris Hubbard under his tutelage and transformed him into a starter. I'm not sure where he went, but he's definitely a starter now at tackle.
Yes.
All right, the next pick, our boy again from Penn State, Marcus Allen, the safety. The Steelers pick him up. Was it 5th or 6th round?
Yeah, 5th round. I was shocked he actually dropped that far. I thought he was an extremely talented safety. I read that he dropped pretty far because of his size and his speed downfield, apparently. He doesn't have long-lasting speed, but I still think this is a solid pick, especially for the AFC North. Like I said before, it's one of the hardest-hitting divisions in football, and if there's one thing that's great about Marcus Allen, it's his hit power. He absolutely destroys people out there. He plays every play hard. He definitely has heart. And I think he kind of brings the same energy we saw Juju Smith-Schuster bring last year to the offense. I think he can bring that same kind of energy to the defense and really get the Steelers' defense hyped up for these huge games that they're going into next season. So, I personally love this pick. Squid, how about you?
I really liked it, too. I thought he slid a lot farther than he should have slid. The guy's a winner, and I like winners. And that's the guys you need to put around you. He makes big plays at big moments. He's a prime-time player. As Dickie Vitale would say, he's a PTP, baby. He just goes out there. He breaks up passes. And in the college game, he was always there, always in the right place.
Yeah.
And you know what? Forget about the physical things. You see guys like the linebacker at UCF, Griffin. You watch him play? He only has one hand, but it doesn't matter. He's out there making plays every time. Yeah. And Allen might not be the size that they want for a safety, but throughout his college career, he didn't care about that. All he did was go make plays. So I love the pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing with him falling was I read it was his lateral speed, maybe closing in on the ball a little bit. But then I think if he plays around the line of scrimmage, he could be a very dangerous opponent for any team that's facing the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you lose a guy, Mike Mitchell, and they lost another safety, did they not? I forget his name.
Robert Golden left too.
Yeah, they lost a couple safeties. You got to replenish that. And Terrell Edmonds earlier in the draft. But if you use him at linebacker, then maybe you bring in another safety. They get Marcus Allen, and I think he fits the bill.
Yes. So then we saw in the 6th round, the Steelers picked Jalen Samuels, the running back from NC State. I I was a little bit wondering, I was wondering of what the Steelers were doing again here, but then I feel like he will kind of fit in more as a third down running back, more of like a role player for them.
Yeah.
Not so much a starter. It really depends on what happens with Le'Veon Bell, and I'm not sure of how much faith they are instilling in James Conner as well. Squid, how do you feel about Jalen Samuels? Sorry, I almost choked right there.
Another interesting pick. I kind of don't understand it. You have a guy that's maybe a goal line back. He's a bigger guy, played at NC State, has the H-back look, could be fullback, could play tight end. But you're all right at fullback, you're all right at tight end. And
you're great at... Hey, hold on 1 second.
Special teams.
1 second. They're great at fullback. Roosevelt Nix, my boy.
He made the Pro Bowl.
He was a Pro Bowler. Okay. So you were saying they're great at fullback, great at tight end.
Yeah, I think they're safe at fullback. They're safe at tight end right now. They don't need players there. So the only way I see him making a team is special teams or a third down goal line type back who needs short yardage. Because they had a player like that last year that would run, they called him Nightmare. And he would come in and run 1 yard type runs when he needed 1 yard, goal line situations, 4th and 1.
Yeah.
I think he could be useful in that situation. He has a Mike Tolbert kind of look to him, and I think that's a possible upside. But they have the fullback right now that they want in Roosevelt Nix. So this pick really kind of surprised me.
I mean, it surprised me as well, but I think part of it is they're just adding some more depth back there in the backfield. You have Le'Veon Bell, James Conner, and now you even add Jalen Samuels. Again, like I said with the Chargers, you just add another weapon back there. And I think, while you probably didn't need to pick him up, I think he's a solid pick, though. Dropping all the way to the 6th round at that point, I think he's a solid pickup for them. And the last pick of the draft, I didn't even know his name, Joshua Frazier, the D lineman from Alabama. Squid, how do you think, or what do you think the Steelers picked him for?
I was discussing with you guys a little bit earlier. At defensive line, you'll see a little bit of depth issues. They have L.T. Walton that they like at defensive end as a reserve, but you want a guy that you can plug in at defensive tackle, defensive end. You need a little bit of defensive line depth. Every team does, because guys like Cam Hayward are susceptible to injury, and defensive tackles, they can't play every step because every snap they're getting more and more tired. They're made to be fat so they can take up space, and they can't play every down. So getting defensive line depth is underrated, and it's a really good pick in the 7th round because there's a lot of guys that have positional utility and can play across the defensive line. That's what the Steelers needed, and I think that's what they got in the 7th round.
Yeah, I think their last 2 picks, much like Jalen Samuels, Frazier just adds some depth. And I think that's something that you need in today's sports world. Not even just in the NFL, in every sport. Depth is key now. And like you said, they can't play every down, the defensive linemen. So I think this is a good pick for them in the 7th round.
All right, so that will be all for the Fam Sports podcast today. Squid, where can we find you elsewhere? Like, how about let's give a little shout out to your Instagram for all of those ladies out there that are dying to meet you. How about that?
How about you can follow me at H2Squid, that's H2SQUID. Hit me up with the follow. I may or may not follow back.
I love it.
Unless you're a lady, then I'll definitely follow.
That is the Encyclopedia of Sports, everyone. Squid, thank you for joining us. DB and I will be back for another Fam Sports podcast. I'm sure Squid will be back as well. Thank you for listening, and we'll have some more updates for you in the sports world pretty soon. Thank you.
See you, everyone.